And then back to you.
The last one, and this one is just a first read, so there's no action needed tonight. So I'm going to make a motion to discuss.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion to discuss I-5.
Yes. So I actually came, and everybody should have a copy of it, with a proposed revision to what was actually attached, which I'll get to in a minute, but I know it's late, but bear with me for a minute. So our current policy on transgender students was adopted in 2018, and basically just says that we adopt the Department of Education and Rhode Island Department of Education guidance on transgender and nonconforming students. Our current policy doesn't specifically call out the protections that are provided in those guidances, so what we did in the policy committee was we revised it to be more specific about how we're supporting our students who are transgender and non-binary. Research has consistently demonstrated that LGBTQ plus youth frequently face discrimination, harassment, and violence in school, and these hostile school climates can lead to detrimental effects such as poor mental health and poor educational outcome. Research in the area of LGBTQ plus students has shown that protective factors such as supportive adults within the school, supportive peer clubs, protective policies, and inclusive curricula, they can all buffer the negative impacts of discrimination and bias in school and can help that all students, thrive. There is definitely, some pushback that we have received on this change in policy, and I can understand that. But the one thing I really want to stress is being uncomfortable is not the same thing as being unsafe, and school officials have a responsibility to ensure the safety of all students. Schools have permitted all students to access restrooms and locker rooms based on their gender identity for many years. That's how everybody moves through restrooms in their daily life. Like, nobody is asked to prove their gender before they use a bathroom, and to try to enforce any other type of policy is just unimaginable and invasive. And there's been strong studies that show that supporting the students' needs at school provides a great short-term solution. Now, of course, where possible, the goal should be to support the student's family and student to be on the same page, and that the family would accept their child's gender identity, but that doesn't always happen. And I think our responsibility is to protect the student. And so I know that there were some concerns expressed on ambiguous language and or opinion that was inserted in the revision attached to the agenda, and based on that feedback, as well as some other suggestions I received from transgender students and people who work in the health field, I made some proposed changes, which you all have a copy of. The purple is my proposed changes to the red line version. I was turning into multicolors. The red line version. The one thing that I heard from students is that non-conforming is a stigmatizing language. Yeah. So I made a change to have that say gender diverse instead of gender non-conforming because I think that's important. The other thing that a student pointed out to me, which I thought was really good, there was a statement in here that said the majority of people are cisgender while a minority are transgender. That's also stigmatizing language, so removing that. And then removing some of the ambiguity around may or may not, and when possible, notify parents, just to kind of make that language a little bit clearer. So we don't have to vote on this tonight. I'd like everybody to review this revision.
We can't vote on this tonight.
Yeah, we can't vote on it tonight, but if anybody has any questions or concerns, I'm happy to address.
Yep, thank you so much for that, Jen. I just want to clarify for the committee. So when the policy subcommittee voted on the revisions to send up, what the policy subcommittee had set forward is the things that are read, and then what it sounds like is that Ms. Lima was able to connect with some students and health professionals after that, and then has other ones. So I just want to be really clear for the committee that was not, the purple stuff is not in the recommendation from the policy subcommittee, but may have been adopted, and obviously all the members of said committee are at the table. So if anyone has clarifying questions for Jen, I just want to make sure people understood the process of how it got here and that it was altered, which is fine, but I just want to make sure people understand.
So just to be clear, if you're looking at this, the black is our existing policy. Right. The red is what we went through in the policy subcommittee, and then the yellow highlights and the purple print are the revisions that I'm recommending
As a school committee
as
member,
a school committee member, not as a
committee
policy
member.
chair,
Yep,
yeah,
there we go.
to this policy.
Just want to make sure everyone
Yep.
understood who did what at what
Yep.
level. And great. Okay. So further discussion on this policy. I do want to thank Jen for reaching out to the school advisors to connect with students. As you know, one of our goals this year for the school committee is to get student voice and student opportunity in decision-making realms, because they had given feedback, I believe, in the equity audit that was a concern of theirs, and so I do appreciate any time we're able to do that. So thank you for doing that, Jen.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We have some comments.
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. I'm happy to take discussion here, but similarly to the class rank feedback, our newest school committee member did send comments regarding this, and so I asked the clerk to read them, and I believe you have them in front of you as well. So if anybody, but first I want to let folks in the room, if anyone else has further discussion. If not, we'll turn it over to Jules to read that. Sounds good? Go ahead.
All right. Jane Sheehan, recommendation number 1, the parental right to information about their child. The need to keep parents informed of significant school issues is important. While staff members act in loco parentis on behalf of students, this privilege must give way to the right of parents or guardians to be apprised of matters pertaining to the health and well-being of their own minor children. This is especially true for transgendered or gender non-conforming youth, as they are more at risk for mental illness, including depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts and attempts, and self-harm than their non-transgender peers. Barring any specific legal prohibition, requests for information made by a parent, parents, or guardian should suffice to permit staff to respond to any questions about their child, including issues related to gender. If adopted, I would defer the drafting of an amendment to legal counsel. Recommendation number 2, restrooms and changing room policies. The optimal solution would be for the district to make available individualized gender-neutral or all-gender restrooms and changing rooms across the board. This would respect the privacy of all students, irrespective of gender identity. Until then, the district shall make accommodations allowing students to use the facilities consistent with their gender identity. Students seeking such an accommodation would meet confidentiality with the school principal or designee, who would affirm the student's expressed gender identity through documentation from any one of the following: a parent, guardian, guidance counselor, or from a doctor, psychologist, or other medical professional. Thereafter, a gender support plan, GSP, would be written with the goal of ensuring student confidentiality, safety, support, and emotional well-being. A GPS would last the entire tenure of a given student unless that same student voluntarily opts out. While this process is modeled on the Rhode Island Interscholastic League's eligibility regulations for transgendered athletes, a more in-depth process for providing various other student accommodations has been established through federal and state law over decades. Students possessing either a 504 or an IEP are furnished with accommodations after a diagnosis is made by a licensed professional. Thereafter, an individual educational plan, IEP, or 504 plan is written. Of course, this is in no way to equate transgender or gender nonconformity with disability. If adopted, I would defer to the drafting of an amendment to legal counsel. And lastly, recommendation number 3, communication with the media. I would recommend narrowing the scope of terms media and matters. The current language is quite broad, inviting possible unintended consequences for well-meaning comments or discussion of the general issue of transgender identity or expression that may be shared online or posted via social media by staff. I recommended a prospective amendment below for your consideration. Proposed amendment. Only the superintendent or designee shall communicate to representatives of the news media regarding district policy matters relating to student gender identity or expression. District staff shall direct the media to the superintendent or designee. In communicating with the news media, parents or guardians and the community, Protecting the privacy of transgender and gender nonconforming students shall be the top priority for spokesperson and staff.
Okay, thank you so much, Jules, for reading that into the record. Okay, further discussion on the first read for the policy that we are in discussion for.
I think I need to point out that the high incidence of mental health and suicide and other stressors that transgender youth face are not because they are transgender. It has nothing to do with who they are. It's because of the issues that they face from other people not accepting them. And I just think that's a very important point.
Thank you.
And I'd like to point out on the parental right to information, I don't think parents should be notified simply because society assumes that every child has a well-meaning family culture that is accepting of this. Sometimes the worst thing you can do is involve a parent in some of these issues based on their own beliefs and their own culture. And that will cause that student to commit suicide. If you tell a student who's trusted you, who has come out to say that I'm lesbian, and you now go back and tell the parent that child has no faith in that school system ever again and will never come forward with any information. And his second recommendation, or the third recommendation, or where is it here, that they should have documentation from their parent or their physician or their guidance counselor. I can tell you for a fact, as a medical provider, I would never have provided that documentation to the school, because it does appear that now you're segregating out this child and you're trying to say that this is a disability. This is who they are. And this is not like to set up even an IEP for them or anything. You're now saying that what you're doing has a stigma to it and it's wrong. Look at what the disabled students go through for normalization. These kids are normal. This is just who they are. That's just the way it is. So my point would be that we never notify a parent on these issues unless the child's life is in danger. And then I think we have to err on the side of implied consent, that if we need to, we have to. You know, if I know this student truly is suicidal, they've attempted, yeah, I'm going to notify the parents. Actually, you're not probably notifying anybody. The hospital and the emergency services are going to handle all of that. But I don't think we should notify parents on many issues that we notify parents on. It's a little bit different when we get to the higher age, to the high school, and if you have a student who's of near legal age. I couldn't, in New Jersey, for example, the age of emancipation is 13. I can't notify a parent if a child came in for a GYN exam, if they were raped, if they had a sexually active disease, if they're pregnant. Now, the mother can make decisions for the pregnant baby, and she can make them for herself because she's now emancipated by the pregnancy from. But if she's not pregnant, I can't tell the parent that your kid came in and they have syphilis. So why would I tell them that your child has come out to express that they're lesbian? It takes away that whole safe zone. The school may be their only safe zone that they have.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts on the first read in front of us?
On the what?
The first read, sorry, like the document in front of us.
No, I will just say I appreciate the comments by my two colleagues. I am in complete agreement. I think I agree some of the comments I think show a lack of understanding of what the process to come out, which is obviously a very personal process, one that I have gone through, which I'm not equating what I did to a transgender person or individual, because that is a completely much more involved process. And I have the utmost respect for people that follow that process in order to live their true selves. So, yeah, I would completely discount the recommendations that have been made, and I urge my colleagues to do so because it just shows a complete lack of understanding. But I do support this policy, and I look forward to looking at the additional revisions that have been proposed.
And I did some further research. There's only 10 states in the United States that have mandatory parental notification. All the other states are like, no, we're not telling them. So it's not like we're the oddball. We're doing pretty much what everybody else is doing if we don't notify.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the comments from my colleagues here today, and I think one thing that is really important, and I do understand, in the correspondences that we received, I understand that, I really thought, Debbie, what you said about, like, the assumption of good parenting, right, is there, and I did hear from families and community members of, that they were writing to us from care and concern of their children. Like, it was not, like, and they were those people that would be great and amazing and supportive, and they would want to know anything that they could about their students. But I think, I was looking at it and thinking about it from my lens of our job is to protect students in certain situations, and so I would ask Mr. Hennessy, just as far as before we see it for a second read, I would like to just check the legality of it, because I know, like, as far as like making sure that this is what we have written is in compliance with
the policy as written is in compliance with the federal and state guidance without question.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ensure that because I do want to make sure and this is only in a case where a student is not choosing to disclose to their families, etc. Like, it's, I think it's that piece of it is an important piece of it. And I just, I think that some of the feedback that we received from the community just shows an increased level of need of awareness for trans and non-binary students in this community in general. It was concerning to me, some of the comments that we received. And I think, that's just an important piece that we need to remember too, is that in our schools and in our greater town community, we need to do some more education of folks about the importance of this process for students, and I was a bit concerned about some of the feedback. So
just one more thing I want to say on that note was that the underlying theme that I picked up from a lot of the questions was, well, how come you don't notify a parent about if they're drinking? How come you don't notify a parent about if they skip school? And I think it's important to note that those things are either illegal or against policy, and it presumes that there is something inherently wrong with being transgender and thus needs to be notified, and that's not the case. Like, we don't notify parents if, Billy kisses Susie or Susie kisses Sally. Like, we're not notifying parents of those things. Being transgender is, like you said, Debbie, somebody's identity. Like, it's not something that they have done wrong. And I think that goes to your point, Erin, about understanding and awareness, and maybe that's something we can work on as a district, but I think these recommendations are, I agree with you, Rob, I truly am horrified by this, I'll be honest, and I think I certainly will not be entertaining them.
Can I ask one question? Because I had looked at other policies as that other districts around the country have in regards to this, and one thing that I noticed, and maybe I missed it, and I'm asking, or maybe it's in your new recommendations, which we haven't had a chance to review yet, but I did notice that there was specifically spelled out in some policies where it said, in the case of an extreme crisis or emergency, then you could notify, or there could be. Is that in there?
It's not, but that's. I mean, we can certainly visit that.
Yeah, I definitely. And I would also like feedback from the building administrators, kind of regarding that piece as well, because I did hear you. As far as, like, I'm not sure where and who in the buildings are mandatory reporters and different things for things like potential student self-harm, but I do want to make sure that we are not.
So we all are.
Yeah.
I mean, every employee is a reporter, and our staff knows that we've provided training on that. So
I think that's an important designation,
that is aware of any type of information that may be neglect or self-harm or a child's in danger. we have to report
Yeah,
that.
so I think to that point, then maybe just looking at and including what Rob's referencing and what Debbie was referencing is important, because I think that we don't want a employee to not reach out in that moment, even though they are under that category, because they're concerned about this. So I think just maybe taking a little bit of a look at that piece.
I would say, I think,
Yeah.
Our counselors know that,
Well,
psychologists,
and-
social workers,
Hello.
a lot of the
Well,
staff that have direct contact know what their
Yeah.
responsibilities are.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we don't unintentionally put language in that
Yeah.
doesn't clarify that, so we can work on that.
There was something in the guidance that I read about, if a parent needs to reach out to a student, like, it should be, I mean, if a staff
School
needs to
stuff,
reach
yeah.
out, I'm so tired, to the parent, that the discussion should be around the issue, not the identity, and I think that's an important, like, if you are aware that there is a problem, so I think.
So it sounds like we can look at that piece of it. Any further discussion regarding this? As always, we're always, we are always welcoming
administrators
and staff's thoughts, so if you.
Yes, and we, in our
Yeah.
our last meeting council, we did share with them this policy
Yep.
as well as the other policy, and then told them to please review it
Yep.
and provide us any feedback if there's anything in either of us.
Yeah, if you could just
Feedback,
make
so-
sure that they see the revised version. I just want to make sure that they see the most up-to-date one, and have an opportunity again just to give us any feedback before our next meeting when we vote on it. Because I really value the great work that our staff's doing to help all students in our building. So, anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to